Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 36 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
And this is the last episode of Season 2 where we are reading Jake Jackson's Myths and Legends, a book about world mythology.
From around the world.
Yes, that's the last time we'll say that, probably, because this is
Yes.
the last time we'll be covering this book. So we'll be moving on to another book here in a couple weeks that we'll be covering. We won't reveal that until the end of the episode, I think. So keep listening to find out what we'll be talking about next time.
Is this what they call the penultimate?
No, the penultimate was last one.
This
is the ultimate.
Ultimate.
Yes.
Ultimate.
Yes.
It seems like those are superlatives, but really it's just the order of orders.
Yes.
You know, right?
Yes. So in this chapter, we're combining two chapters from the book for this episode. Legends for Children and Tales of the Great Fèinn.
This is Scottish myths.
Yes, Scottish mythology.
Not
Should have
really
mentioned
legends, I guess. Not really myths. Do you think they're myths?
I think they're more legends, but
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what the definition difference between those two is.
We're
Pretty
not-
similar.
We're not splitting hairs.
We're not. We're not. Except we do all of the time in these episodes. We split hairs on just about everything. But yeah, do you have any forethoughts before we just jump into the stories here?
I don't know. Forethought. Really?
I don't know.
I don't know. Is that the right word?
Okay, now we're splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs.
There is one story that I was completely confused by the ending, and I asked you about that before the podcast, and you said, no, we will talk about it in the podcast.
Yes, so I still don't know what this is, but I guess we'll get there.
I feel as if you're going to explain it to me, and I'll be like, but I think
that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those rare occasions where I'm confused by something.
Yes. Rare, very rare.
Now you're just flat. You're quite often just flat out wrong.
That is true. But I say it confidently, so it doesn't sound like I'm confused.
True. I am acknowledging the limitations of my knowledge, where you usually are just plowing through and you just get it wrong.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Yes, that's fantastic going into this last episode here. So we're going to start out with the legends.
I didn't mean that as a compliment.
I'm aware.
Oh, okay.
We're going to start off with the Legends for Children with the story of the little bird. A man and a woman once lived in the woods with their 2 sons and a fairy-like daughter whose eyes shone with the promise of dreams, and this displeased her stern mother. This daughter, who had just turned 5, was about to set out on her daily walk to fetch milk with her mother's jug, when she saw a bright new skipping rope on the table. She asked her mother if she could take the rope with her, and the mother reluctantly agreed, saying that if she spilled a single drop of milk, she would kill her daughter.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. She gathered the milk, and as she skipped home, the jug fell and broke. But a neighbor saw her and gave her a nearly identical jug of milk, and so she returned home without spilling a single drop. However, when she returned home, her mother realized that she had dropped the jug, for the new one had a red stripe where hers had a blue. So she killed her daughter, strangling her with the rope and baking her into a pie, which her father began to eat later that night.
I mean, that's just horrible.
Yes, it's absolutely terrible.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
I don't see how these are stories for children, but
well, don't spill the milk.
true.
As he ate, he found a finger in his daughter's ring, and he was furious with his wife, but decided not to kill her, for there would be no one left to clean and cook, which is also, I think, very reasonable.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is a laziness on a level that I have not experienced in my actual life.
Yes, it's true.
I would have killed her.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have done it with joy. I mean,
Yeah.
like in real life,
Mhm.
like if your mom went crazy and killed one of you and put them in a pie, and by the way, I love pie.
I'm aware.
That would have been the first clue that things were wrong, that she baked something for me. But she is very clean. So
That is
she does
true.
Clean the house.
That is true.
But yeah, she wouldn't have been able to fool me
Mm-hmm.
into consuming one of my children a pie. But what a horrible character this person was.
Yes, they're all horrible, I think. Just about. Except for the children, I guess.
Well, the brothers were good in this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The children, yes.
Yeah. I mean, the dad wasn't horrible.
Yeah, I guess not.
He was just
Kind of clueless and lazy.
Like, I could kill her, but
But then my house will
I'd
get
have to do
dirty
my
and
dishes,
yeah.
and I'd have to cook my own pies. Be like, I wouldn't touch anything this woman cooked for me again.
Yeah.
You know?
That's fair.
Hmm.
So time went by, and a small brown bird would often visit the cottage. And
Tweet.
yes, thank you,
Yes,
of
yeah.
course, for the sound effects. And the 2 boys had grown to love it, often feeding it. On Christmas Eve, they were startled by a voice coming down the chimney, saying, "Brother, look up and see what I've got." And as each boy looked up the chimney, they were showered with candy and toys. The same happened to the father, who was given a new suit, tobacco, and a card that he was instructed to not open until 2 hours after Christmas night. The mother was then called to the chimney, and a great stone was dropped on her, and she died. The father opened the letter, which stated that it was his daughter, and the spell was now broken, and she would return on New Year's Eve. When the day
No, wasn't it New Year's Day? Oh, no, you're right. It was New Year's Eve. I read that
thank
wrong.
you. Yes, you did.
Yeah, thank you.
When the day came, there was no sign of the girl, but the small bird hopped into the kitchen, who said that she was the daughter, asking for her mother's pinky ring, which turned her back into a girl. I'm going to read here from the book. And the girl drew herself up tall, and took the ring that had belonged to her mother, and the ring that had once been hers, and laid them safely away in a box, a reminder of what can happen to girls with skipping ropes, and mothers with no time for fairy-like ways or dreams. So I guess this is a warning story, both for mothers and for children. Children don't skip rope, and mothers don't kill your children.
Yes, and I would have read the excerpt. So, like, she asked for the pinky ring, but of course the mother's dead, and they buried her with it. Mm-hmm. So this is how it's explained. When they asked her to get the pinky ring, this they did, though it meant digging up the body of the wicked mother from the newly turned grave. They returned with the ring presented to the bird, who turned at once into our little girl. Which I would be frightened. Mm-hmm. I'd always kind of look at that sister or daughter, like be frightened of that person.
Yeah. Lots of people turn into birds in these stories, I've noticed.
I think there's a certain amount of justice in that one. Mm-hmm. I mean, that she came back. It was such a horrible death, and she strangled her with the jump rope.
Yes.
It's like, ugh.
Just brutal.
Well, it's too real.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm sure there's somebody right now in the world murdering their child.
That's lovely.
But, so it's not that uncommon, I suppose.
This definitely seems like one to me. I mean, maybe it was written to be just a horrible, brutal story for children, but it definitely seems to me like this was an older story about a more violent thing that was turned into sort of a child's fable. Like, how do I get my child to stop jumping rope? I know this old story about this mother who killed her child. Let me kind of throw in a moral there. Maybe.
I guess.
I don't know. It just seems a little dark for a children's fable here.
Well, it was a more brutal time, I think, too.
I guess that's true.
You know.
Although it doesn't seem like it was too ancient, because I don't know how long. I guess jump ropes could have been a thing for a very long time, but I don't know.
I don't know the history of jump ropes.
That seems like something that you would be an expert on.
I don't know how to take that.
But yeah, I guess there was, like you're saying, there's a certain amount of justice here, so that's good.
The girl came back.
The mother died. Yeah, got a rock dropped on her.
Evil mother.
Yes.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, that's never good to have a mother.
And now the dad has somebody to clean up after.
That's true. It all worked out for the dad.
For everybody.
It sure did. The next story is The Fox, the Wolf, and the Butter.
This is the one I did not understand.
Really?
I did completely befuddled by the end.
Okay.
I think I read the ending like 5 different times. I can't figure it out.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll go through the story and we'll see what happens here.
I don't know. I am missing something.
Probably. Long ago, a wolf and a fox were friends, but there was always a shadow of mistrust among them, for foxes are wily creatures. One day, they came upon a great cask of freshly churned butter, deciding to hide it until they had a chance to bring it home. The next day, the wolf asked if they should move it, but the fox said that he had to go to a christening, and so he was gone the whole day and returned home smiling and content. The wolf asked what they had named the baby, and the fox responded, Mu Bel, meaning about the mouth. The next day, the same thing happened with the fox going to a christening, and this time he said that the baby had been named Mu Laith, or about half. The process repeated a third time, with the name reportedly being Skrobach a mice, or scraping the bottom. The next day, the fox finally said that they should go get the butter, but they found it empty, with the fox saying that the wolf must have eaten him, then cursing him, saying, If I ate the butter and it was I, curum catum, curum Q. But if you ate the butter and it was you, a galling plague on your grey belly in the dust. There was no great harm in the curse of the fox, for his words were empty, but the curse he had laid on the wolf was poison indeed, for his belly was empty and the butter was gone. So what didn't you understand about this?
I didn't understand what happened.
You don't understand what happened?
He laid a curse, and I didn't understand.
But the curse was empty because the wolf didn't actually eat it. And so what it's saying at the end is that, the curse didn't actually happen, but the wolf was still hungry because he has no food.
But the curse he had laid on the wolf was poison indeed, For his belly was empty and the butter. Okay, so it was.
So it's just saying the curse didn't do anything, but the wolf still ended up hungry because he didn't have the butter. Yes, and so if you read the curse,
so I guess the wolf is just stupid.
Yes,
because the fox is cursing him, but of course nothing happened because he didn't steal it.
Yeah,
and so then the wolf didn't.
And so the curse
it's
itself,
either one of them or the other. Is the wolf so stupid that he didn't realize? Well, if I didn't do it, then you must.
Yes, the wolf must be very stupid.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes, but the curse itself is, if I ate the butter and it was this is the fox saying that.
What's
then he just says,
churam?
I assume it's just nonsense words because he's just saying, if it was me, then nothing happens essentially. But if it was you, then a plague upon you and you'll die. But of course, it wasn't the wolf, but he still ends up hungry because he doesn't have the butter and he has no food.
All right. Okay.
So this is just a story about a mischievous fox and, don't eat your friend's food without them knowing.
Yes. He left some clues.
Yes, he did. He really did. Yes, the wolf is really stupid.
Yeah,
he really should have picked up on this.
Yeah, he's taunting him throughout the story.
Yes, he is. This is a common thing.
I think the wolf should have eaten the fox.
Probably. But this is a common thing in a lot of stories. The fox is, almost universally portrayed as a character like this. Almost always a trickster, especially throughout Europe. There's a...
It looks clever.
Well, there's a common, mythological, legendary figure called Reynard, and it's translated into, every European language, basically, Reynard the Fox, as always being, a wily trickster fox. And even the French word for fox is Reynard, because of Reynard the Fox. The name for the legendary fox replaced the original French word for fox because foxes were so associated with this legendary figure.
To me, it seems much more logical to have a clever trickster fox than there is to be a clever trickster spider, a Nazi. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they don't have any foxes, I guess.
They got to have other animals. They've got little fox-like creatures in Africa.
I think spiders are tricksters. They spin the webs, right? And that's the deceit and everything. You can't see it, and you walk right into it.
I guess.
I think it makes sense.
But if you look at a spider, it doesn't look like it's a clever, sly creature. You look at a fox, it looks like one. There's a couple little they have a serval in Africa, which is like a cat creature. It looks kind of clever.
Yeah.
It'd have to be some sort of mammal.
I guess. I think a spider makes sense.
Yeah. That makes one of us.
I don't know why you're so offended by spider tricksters.
The spider. I don't. Also, I didn't really like Charlotte's Web.
Okay, I guess you just don't like spiders. I think that's just what I'm getting. Is you don't like spiders in stories.
I don't like it's a. Not human. What do you call it?
Anthropomorphic?
Yes. I don't like the anthropomorphic.
I guess not anthropomorphic. That's if you make an animal look like a human, like personified.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah. Personification of spiders. I just don't see the draw, or other insects.
I can see it with spiders. Because they lay they have the webs and you're drawn into the web and it's a trickster.
You're saying that again.
Yes, I am saying that again because I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
They don't look like anything other than a icky little thing.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
but that's what I'm just saying. Is that it's odd to me to personify insects.
And just about every animal.
Although the ant and the grasshopper story, I can kind of see them.
Just about every animal has been personified at some point.
Yeah, I know, but mammals make sense to me.
Yeah.
They seem a little human-like.
Yes.
The spiders don't seem at all human-like. How do you give them a human quality when they don't look anything like a human? They got 8 legs, beady little eyes.
Well, we personify snakes all the time and that sort of thing in lots of stories. And it's I don't know why you're so specifically opposed to spiders. You just said, I can see an ant and a grasshopper. Why do you draw the line at spiders?
And snakes, like in the Jungle Book movie. That's great.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do about this.
I don't either. There's nothing to do. But what were we talking about?
We were talking
about foxes.
Yes,
and
about
how they
trickster
look
foxes.
Clever.
Yeah.
And my little rabbit's so cute.
Yes.
I almost hit a squirrel on the way to work today.
Congratulations.
I didn't.
Okay.
Slow down. I don't want to hit a squirrel.
Good.
I think they're cute.
Yes, they are cute.
Although they can be mean.
Yes.
Do not trap a squirrel. Like in a corner or something. Like as a joke. I'm going to catch you. It's going to go right at you. But then I was on my way home a couple hours later because I didn't work a full day today. And there's a little dead squirrel at the same spot. Yeah, it's kind of sad. It could have been his cousin or something, but Didn't have to be the same squirrel. Squirrels all over the place.
Yes, that's true. Thank you for that story, I guess. I'm also not sure what to do with that.
Squirrels are kind of cute.
Yes, squirrels are kind of cute. All right, thanks for sharing, I guess.
We're going on to the next story, aren't we?
Yes, we're going on to the next story.
The Einsel.
The Einsel.
Einsel.
I assume.
Reminds me
Yes.
of Edelweiss.
A young boy named Parsi lived in the woods with his mother, and one night he refused to go to bed, and so his mother left him sitting by the fire as she set out a bowl of fresh, cool cream by the doorstep, saying that it would only be his own fault if the old fairy wife got him. Suddenly, the room took on a sinister cast. And
Well, wait a second. Don't you have to like tell the backstory of that? You leave the bowl of cream out.
I was about to get there.
Well, you started talking about suddenly. You should have said, "Well, this is what these brownies show up and they
Yes.
clean your house." Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
I was going to say, suddenly the room took on a sinister cast, and a brownie leapt down the chimney, for they always tidy the houses of those who leave them a bowl of cream.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Parsi asked the brownie his name, and he responded with Einsel, which means own self. And when Parsi was asked his name, he too said, my Einsel. The brownie went ahead and cleaned the house, but Parsi began poking the fire, causing a red-hot ember to singe the brownie, who howled aloud, attracting the old fairy wife, who called down the chimney and asked who hurt him. Parsi dashed off to bed as the brownie said, it was my Einsel, and the frustrated fairy wife plucked the brownie out of the house, and he never returned. And so it was that Parsi always went straight to bed as soon as his mother said so. So it's just a story, go to bed or the old fairy wife's going to get you. He just lucked out because he played the fairy's own game, saying, my name is my Einsel. And so when, of course, the wife asked him, who hurt you, said it was my own self, essentially. Right. And so she just plucked him up out of the house.
Do we have another story like this where somebody said their name was the name of the other person?
The thing that came to mind when I was reading this was Odysseus and the Cyclops when he said, I'm nobody.
Right.
And so
That's what it was.
Yeah, the other Cyclops, like, who hurt you? And he said it was nobody.
Yes. Thank you. God,
yes.
Drive me crazy.
I think there also is another similar story, more child based, where somebody responds, myself or something like that. Right. Something similar.
Well, I remember from the Family Circus cartoon.
What?
There's like in the newspapers, comics, I should say.
Yes.
There's a family circus.
Okay.
And it was a bunch of, it's like a couple with a bunch of little kids, and they had 4 funny little family stories. Mm-hmm. And one of them was the mother yelling at the kid like the cookie jar broke, and she'd say, "Who did this?" And the kid says, "Not me." And there's like a little ghost kid that has like the words "not me" on it, so that's there's like a little gremlin or ghost that was actually called Not Me that is like giggling in the background because Not Me actually did it.
Yes.
And the kid could see Not Me, but the mom couldn't.
I feel like that sounds familiar. I think I might have seen that somewhere.
Oh yeah, they're famous.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a whole series within that comic of different things, not mine, or I didn't do it, or someone else, or but not
feels
me.
like a pretty simple joke to use over and over again.
Well, it's kind of a theme, like there are different ways of doing it,
Yes.
different scenarios. And then they had like all 5 of them were together because all the like 5 different kids had different excuses,
Oh, it's like who's on first.
Well, yes, it's just like that.
I don't know why that made you so angry.
I don't know.
It's kind of the same thing.
It's not because who's
it's a similar joke.
It's similar. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't. For those of you who aren't aware, who's on first is the famous skit. Who does that?
Abbott and Costello.
Abbott and Costello. Yes. That's right. I just couldn't think of the names.
I
was going to say Penn and Teller, but those are the magicians.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No. Which one? I always forget him.
Who's on first?
No. Which one was Abbott? Was Costello? What was this taller, skinny guy? And was a heavy set guy? Abbott. Hey, Abbott. No, Abbott was the skinnier guy, and Costello was the funny guy.
Gotcha.
And so Abbott was trying to explain who was playing in the field, and who's on first.
Yes. Who was the name of the person at first, and what is on second.
And
why?
Third
how?
Base.
Yeah.
How? Third base.
Yeah.
It's a funny skit.
Yes, it is.
You can listen to it now. It's fun.
It's very funny. Yes.
They had a lot of really good movies.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a single Abbott and Costello movie.
Yeah, they're good. They're short movies, and the best ones are like when there's like in a haunted house or something, and Costello gets scared.
Yeah, I might have seen a clip of that one, maybe. Yeah, Yeah, those were the legends for children. What do you think overall of that before we get into the tales of
Any of
Fèinn?
them were appropriate for children.
Yeah,
but if
really.
you want to scare the dickens out of them, that's a good way to do it. It also had some lessons for them, do what your mother says or she's going to kill you and throw you in a pie.
Yeah. Well, I think, that was a common theme for a lot of children's stories. That's how you get the message across, is just to scare the crap out of them. Yeah.
It would, I would think it'd be less traumatic to not have the mother kill them.
Yeah.
Because that's.
I mean, it'll get you to do what she says, I guess.
Yeah.
Should you have told me some of these stories when I was little?
It reminds me of, I don't do a whole lot of domestic relations or divorce stories, but it reminds me of the alienation of affection cases where the soon-to-be ex-spouse is saying all sorts of defamatory things about the other spouse to alienate the affections of the child from the other parent.
Yeah.
As they make up all sorts of stuff and falsify things.
Yeah, that story with the jump rope seems like a story that a father would tell, not necessarily a mother.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do what your mother says, or she will bake you into a pie. I'm the nice one. I won't kill her because I want her to cook me pies. But...
Right. Or it's really... let me tell you a story about your older sister. It's like when the younger sister says, "Whatever happened to mommy?"
Oh yeah, yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, really. The backstory is that he murdered the mother, and then he came up with the story.
It's yikes. Yeah.
Don't you remember being a little brown bird?
Yikes.
It's all your fault. You threw a rock on her head.
Yes. Ugh. The next section is, of course, the Tales of the Great Fèinn. And we covered some similar stories with the same character back in the Celtic legends with Finn McCool.
Yes.
These are some of the Scottish versions of these stories. We get snippets of these. We never really get a full, story of his travels.
Right.
But yeah, he kind of explains, Jake Jackson does in the introduction, really, all these stories were common to both Ireland and to Scotland. And really the host of the Fèinns, the people who served Finn McCool, were set up when the Lachlanike, or the Norwegians, as we know them, were ravaging the coasts of Scotland. And so either these were, real warriors, or they were legends made up about some fictional warriors who beat back the evil Vikings from ravaging Scotland and Ireland and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So they have an interesting history here. And of course, they spread all over Scotland and Ireland.
I read the stories out loud with a Scottish brogue.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. They're much better.
Are they?
Yes.
Well, that's good to know. Should you read all of these?
I used to, you don't remember this, but I used to read you chapter books. Mm-hmm. I thought it was you, or maybe it was Eli that would get aggravated with me. Sometimes it's like, so to our listener out there, when my sons were younger, I would read, of course, when you're really little, I'd read you a little book, like those little board books, and then it became longer and longer, and then we got into the chapter books. So every night I'd read you a chapter book. Now, some nights, I'm working a long day, it's been really tough, but it's hard to say, no, I can't read you a chapter before you go to bed. You go to bed, and, it's a good father-son time. But, also get a little bored. Mm-hmm. And so then I started reading in an accent. And I think it might have been...
I remember some of this. You definitely did this with me, too.
Yeah. So I'd get like a thick Irish accent, and there'd be various protestations sometimes. But sometimes it was fun that way, So that's what I was doing.
That's a good little story there. Thank you for sharing.
And I think, the word of advice to our listener, if he or she is still listening, absolutely read to your kids.
Yes.
I think that's one thing that your mother advocated for with Sam when he was really little. We carried through for all four of you. And I think that more than anything else has has helped you all to be so successful in school.
Probably. The first story here is the story of Ossian and the Crow. Ossian being one of the sons of Finn McCool. I think we read some stories about him in the name of Oisin in the Celtic myths.
Yes.
In the days of Fèinn, there lived 3 brothers in stone shelters, and the oldest brother was Ossian, who had the wisdom and the kindness for all 3.
Meaning the other 2 were so stupid they had none.
Yes, exactly. Right. On one cold, stormy night, a black crow came to the shelters, asking for lodging and food, and the youngest 2 turned her away, but Ossian welcomed her in and offered her food as she laid in the bed. He left to bring her a blanket, and when he returned, a beautiful woman was in his bed, and she revealed that she had been cursed, and the curse was lifted through his kindness, but she would once again become a crow if he called her a black crow once more. They lived happily for some time, and the day came when Ossian's dog was to have puppies, and he instructed his wife to tie a string around the firstborn, for he wished to keep that one, and then he left for a hunt. So it was that they were born, and she did as Ossian said, when suddenly there was a knock at the door, and this was a sinister man asking for the first puppy. Ossian's wife was clever, and so she tied the string to a different puppy and gave it to the man, but he tugged and shook the dog, and it yelped, and so he handed it back, again asking for the firstborn. She repeated this with each puppy until he said that he would cut off her head if he did not give her the firstborn, and so she handed him the firstborn puppy, which made no sound, and so the man took it and left. When Ossian returned, he tugged and shook the puppy with the string, and when it yelped, he became furious, and despite his wife's explanations, he muttered, "What can I expect from a black crow?" With that, she was a crow once more and flew up, tossing down a golden ring to Ossian. I'm going to read here from the book. "Place that ring upon your finger," she said softly, "so that you may live forever. For you have given me many fine years, dear Ossian." And the black crow disappeared forever. That was how Ossian lived to an age beyond all others, for such things could happen long, long ago, in the days of the great Fèinn, when crows could become women and then just disappear into the night. So kind of a
sad story.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It's pretty rough for both the crow and Ossian. I
I think more so for the crow.
For the crow, yeah. He really only had one simple thing to not do, and he kind of just messed that up completely. I feel like
and I don't know why he gets so upset about the dog. I mean, I know the runt of the litter is supposed to be like the littlest and weakest of all of them. And I didn't really understand why this strange dark character came to take the dog.
Yeah, I don't know. These are some of the first stories I think we've seen where dogs are heavily featured. And this very last one we'll see in the next story, dogs are also heavily featured. So it's nice to see people with dogs. But it is also interesting, I think, something that I saw in a few of these stories. A lot of them start with, back in the days when all the animals spoke Gaelic.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit of a tangent, but like every language just about has like a different way of saying once upon a time. And so some of them are similar to this back in the days when the animals could speak Gaelic or, away, 7 seas and 7 lands or, a lot of them are weirdly there once was and there once was not, and then it leads into the story. And it seems to me that this is like one of those types of things there, to set the time. And
it does kind of automatically give you some sort of introduction that this is going to be some sort of fairy tale or something. I mean, it's such a simple turn of words back when all the animals would speak Gaelic. And then all of a sudden you're transported into like some sort of fantasy land.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for us with Once Upon a Time. You don't think so?
Yes.
I mean, to an extent.
It's just so overused. Once Upon a Time is kind of but I mean, I just, when I was reading this, I was like, oh, that's an interesting turn of phrase. And kind of puts you in a simpler times, when, kind of like the Lord of the Rings times,
Yeah. There's one, I forget which language.
Have to work in the,
yes, of course we do. There's one language, I forget, it might be Tamil, maybe, but it's back when the tigers smoked tobacco, and that's how you start off the story. So it's, going back, again, personifying the animals a little bit.
Now, Tamil, that would be near India,
yes.
Right? So, tobacco, was that first in South America, or is it just farmed in South America?
Maybe. Let me look this up, because I want to make sure I have the right language here. But yeah, tobacco was a New World crop, for sure.
I didn't know if it was from the New World, because potatoes are from the New World for sure, and then brought back to Ireland.
Korean, sorry, not Tamil.
Oh.
It was Koreans. Back when tigers smoked, maybe not necessarily tobacco, but it was back when tigers used to smoke, so any type of smoking product.
It could be something a little bit stronger than
yes, possibly. Possibly.
Which, by the way, I'm going to start smoking.
No, you're not. Do not do that. That's a terrible idea. All right. But yeah, I liked the story. It's a very simple, decent little morality tale here. Don't curse at your wife, especially if she's been a very good wife to you in one simple task. But in the end, she does give him something that, grants him sort of this mystical, heroic power at the end. So I guess it works out well for him, not necessarily for the black crow.
I guess it depends on if her nature is a crow. Because if she is at heart or by her nature a crow, it worked out well for her because she got many productive years as the wife of this guy.
It reminds me, of being very similar to the story we read a couple episodes ago with the Selkie, the seal woman, where she, was a seal and then she's kind of lured into the man's house. This is less that story was less good-natured on the man's part.
Yeah, this is less rapey.
yes, exactly. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of that. It's like, well, she was happy both as a seal and as a woman to an extent. So,
yes.
So I guess
had children and all that stuff.
So I guess it could work out somewhat well for this woman. So moving on to the next story, Finn and the journey to Lachlan. It had been many years since the Lachlanite, or Vikings, had been driven from Finn's lands, and so he and his 9,000 warriors spent their days hunting. One day they came across a man from a foreign land who offered to serve Finn for a year and a day if he came to the palace of the king of Lachlan without a dog, man, calf, child, or weapon with him. Finn readily agreed, for he enjoyed a challenge, and so it was that the man served Finn for a year and a day, after which Finn prepared to travel to Lachlan, much to the dismay of his men. And so he said to them, I'm going to read here from the book, I will go and honor my word, but if I have not returned in 1 year and 1 day, then you shall know that I have been killed, and my blood spilled across the land. And if this comes to pass, there must be no man amongst you without a quiver of arrows or a sword in your hands, for my death shall be avenged on the strand of Lachlan, and the host of the Fèinns shall reign supreme. A roar of approval broke out, and as Finn petted his dog Bran goodbye, the court fool came to him, slipping Bran's golden chain into his pocket, which always calmed the mighty dog. Finn then set out with the foreign man, and in a few days they came to the dark, ugly palace of Lachlan, and as Finn entered, he was flung against a wall as his enemies suggested various ways to kill him. One dark man rose, proclaiming that the only death to shame Finn McCool would be to be torn apart by the grey dog in the great glen. So he was taken there, and he stood his ground and prepared to face death as a hero, and the grey dog came upon him, even more terrifying than he could have imagined. Finn instinctively pulled out Bran's chain, and as the hound leapt upon him, he was surprised to feel not teeth, but the dog's tongue on his face, for the grey dog was now loyal to Finn, and so he left the glen with the dog. An old man and wife lived in a cottage at the bottom of the glen, and they gladly welcomed the great warrior into their home, and he spent a year and a day there, sharing stories. Finn learned that Grey Dog had been lulled by Bran's chain because the two were separated brothers. His peace soon came to an end with the rallying cry of 9,000 warriors, and he ran out to meet them, seeing that his own son Oscar leading them, and they all rejoiced to see him. After describing his ordeal, Finn led his men to the castle of the king of Lachlan, beginning a massacre that turned the sea red with blood, then returning home triumphant. So this is just a neat little, I guess, snippet story of some of the exploits of Finn. You get some of the real distinct characterization of this character. Really, kind of, exemplifies what was, sought in a Scottish hero. Always up for a challenge, always brave in the face of danger. If he's going to meet his death, he's going to do it, stoically and I guess steadfastly.
Yes.
So it's a good little way to see, what was important to Scottish heroes here. I like that about that.
Falls into success too. I mean, it's like, but he is, like you said, stoic and strong in the face of adversity, and it just kind of happens. And he listened to the fool, so to speak, and didn't just immediately tell him he's a fool. And, but he's listened to him, and then off he went.
There's one really good line in here that I should have read.
Oh, what is it?
For the wisdom of a king is often trapped in the mind of a fool, and I have that advice for you now. It's what the fool says to him as he slips the chain in his pocket.
Right.
Just because somebody has, the title or the heroic power does not mean that they have all the right answers. And you can find...
Or that if you really, I think the more direct point is that just because you're the fool doesn't mean you don't have some wisdom.
That's what I was about to say. Sometimes there's wisdom in a fool. Yes. But what do you think? What do you think of this story?
I liked it. I liked the doggies.
Yes, that's fantastic takeaway. Really revolutionary thoughts there. I liked the doggies. That's lovely. But yeah,
What
I
are
do.
your thoughts?
I mean, I kind of already said them all.
Okay.
It's a good characterization story. It's also interesting to see, the contrast, because we've read, some of the Norse stories immediately before all this, and seeing sort of the personification of, the Norwegians and those sorts of things as these heroic figures, usually in the form of gods. And then we see the exact opposite from the Scottish, the ugly dark palace and the
they
dark
spring upon him, like they tricked him to get there, and then immediately you're going to kill him.
Yeah.
But again, it brings up the point I always mention: if you're going to be an evil genius or a murderer or whatever, don't hesitate, just kill the guy. Don't oh, we need him to suffer more. No, you don't. Don't put him out in the field for the dog to kill him. Just chop off his head.
Yeah. True.
Keep that in mind.
True. Yeah, but it almost makes me wish that we had more sort of contrasting stories like this. Like, this is the one time that we've seen, myths and tales from enemy and enemy, essentially.
Correct.
And it's like, well, the truth probably isn't, the glorified, stories of the Vikings, but it's also not the glorified stories of the Scottish people, probably somewhere in between there.
Yes. Agreed.
Thank you. Now, the very last story of season 2.
Pretty depressing, I think.
That's a pretty rough one.
Yeah, not good.
This is the story of Finn's great sword. After the death of Diarmait at Finn's hands, he struggled to put the death behind him, traveling to Islay from Kintyre, and here he was met by a strange little man. This man declared that he was a blacksmith, saying that he would forge a sword like no other if Finn caught him, and he then doddered away, and so the chase went on for nearly hundreds of miles, finally coming to the fairy's smithy. Entering, Finn was greeted by the fairy's daughter, and they began work on the sword. Just before it was finished, the girl told Finn that her father would ask what else there is to do, and he must say, "The sword is wanting but one little thing yet," and then plunge the sword into the blacksmith's body. For if the sword is tempered with fairy blood, it will be stronger than any other. As the sword was finished, Finn did exactly as the girl had said, plunging the sword straight through the fairy's body, then leaving the cottage. And the great Fèinn travel on again, the powerful fairy sword safe by the side of the mighty Finn. His prophecy had been true, for wherever that sword was aimed, it struck its mark. The name of the sword was Mac and Luin, and from that day onwards, it never left the side of the great Finn. Yeah, so it's unfortunate that this smith that, made this fantastic sword for him, suffers for it, gets stabbed straight through the body by the request of his own daughter, which is, interesting, to say the least, that, the own daughter would say, yeah, kill my dad and you'll have a really good sword. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the King Arthur myths almost, with, the mysterious woman offering the wisdom either to pull the sword out of the bottom of the lake.
The Lady of the Lake?
Yeah, the Lady of the Lake.
Does the Lady of the Lake actually say anything?
I don't know if she does. It's been a while since
I've... The movie she doesn't. It's been a long time since I read any of that stuff.
I've read La Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. That's like a big old compendium of the Arthurian legends, but it's been a while. Yeah. I have it sitting in that cupboard or cabinet right there, I guess.
The best thing about the Excalibur movie is them going to battle to Karl Orff's Carmina Burana.
All right.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Carmina Burana?
I don't.
I
don't know that song.
Oh, you'll know it as soon as you hear it.
Okay.
It's famous.
Yeah, but what'd you think of this story?
It's good enough that I want to see it live. And I have never had the opportunity to see it live. You need a choir and a symphony orchestra.
I was very confused. I asked you about the story, and then you just continued talking about exactly what you were talking about before.
I wasn't done talking about it. That was merely a pause, and you started trying to redirect me to what we're supposed to talk about.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Definitely sort of the middle section of a story that we got here. We hear about the death of this person, and he's struggling through that. So we don't get the full story here, which I think is pretty common for most of this book here, that we only get little snippets. Right. But yeah, we should talk about generally. Yes, that's what I was
just.
This is our last
about myths and legends.
Well, I mean, about the book Myths and Legends, but we will be talking about myths going forward.
Oh, will we? How do you figure?
Well, let's talk about this book overall here by Jake Jackson. Yeah. Let's start off with you, because I think you'll give the more cynical approach.
I wouldn't say cynical. I think I would. It could have been shorter, just talking about myths. I think that we had a lot of fairy tales and legend stories. And so it could have been more focused on that. Although I enjoyed probably the fairy tales, so to speak, or the legend stories maybe a little bit more sometimes. Yeah. But we could have gone a little bit more in depth into different mythologies. Yeah, I mean, the different cultures have different attitudes about things, and so their myths kind of relate that. And I wonder if, it's kind of like the chicken and egg thing, what created their societal mores? Yeah. What was the myth a reflection of it, or did it help create it, or a little both? I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking when we were going into this. I'm sure I said this, many times throughout the podcast, but that's what I really like about myths, is that it shows, at least to a certain extent, what values that a certain society has. What they look for in a warrior, what they find as evil, and it goes a little bit deeper than that, like other than just listing, here are the good traits, here are the bad traits, because it goes into like sometimes, like color symbolism. What are the good colors?
Right.
And, what are the good animals? What are the bad animals? What is a trickster personified as? That sort of thing.
Seems like we need to create some new myths.
You've said that before.
Yes.
You've said that before. Along with, we need a new,
myths.
yeah, you need to make your own cult, and
I didn't say we needed to. I said it was.
you want to.
Yeah, it's kind of like it'd be good to be king.
Yes.
It'd be cultly. I don't really mean that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes,
as a
I'm
joke,
aware.
because it'd be a hell of a lot of work. I think you really have to be devoted to be.
I mean, you'd have to have
manipulative.
You'd have to have a woman to clean and to cook. Couldn't kill her if she cooks your daughter into stew.
True. Yeah. I mean, it just wouldn't be practical for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to think about forming my own religion.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that's complete and total blasphemy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So that's kind of not good.
Yeah, it's put a damper on your plans. It's
Right.
darn blasphemy.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I do like the idea of a new. I think there's a real market for it,
mm-hmm.
myth making, because right now, American society is kind of rudderless.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the age of the least religious
mm-hmm.
in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
There have been. I always forget there's always waves of religiosity.
Religiosity, maybe?
No, that's not it. But it's like but you have what am I thinking of? Like the I always forget the word for it. But it's like waves of people getting back into religious ideas and concepts, and then kind of fading away, and then it comes back. Revivalism.
Yes.
Like the religious revivals, big time. And I think, well, if the economy keeps going in the tanker, that usually coincides with a downturn. You have a revival religion. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it's I mean, I think it's good to have the revival, but maybe it's more so people just need something if they don't have any money or anything else to do with their time. Maybe they start thinking about things more. But but anyway, so I think I think the lack of religion really creates an opening for new myth making stories.
I agree. One of the big things that I think I've seen is, like, especially now in the United States, we're like not looking at old things just because they're old. We look at old things as they are inherently bad. They're outdated. We can't use them in our modern life. And that's, one of the other reasons why I like mythology so much, is that there are, like I've said this millions of times on this podcast, but there are lessons in there that we can still apply today. Yeah. And it's like, when you're not looking at the, writings of people that have held true for literally thousands of years, and you're just saying, well, we don't need that because we have this new stuff, and the new stuff's much better than the old just because it's new. Right. And it's like, well, you're missing out on this whole wealth of knowledge from the people that came before you. Yeah,
it's not just knowledge, it's wisdom. The current pop culture is just so devoid of merit and creativity and any sort of sense of understanding of human nature. And you hit on the head where they just demonize things that are old or have come before them, and it's like I was watching. It was like I think it was a Rick Steves thing where he's traveling through Europe, and
you love Rick Steves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love him, but I mean it's fun to see, because I don't know if I'll ever travel to Europe, but he has a real emphasis on historical buildings and libraries and art history and stuff, and I'm fascinated by that. Anyway, he visited. The one episode I was watching was about Oxford and Cambridge, and I forget which one it was, but it's like, they're so old. It was like 13th century or something. They built this one building, and the building itself and the weight of it and the design of the roof, the interior of it, it was just art, and I thought, you can't build that stuff now. Yeah. I mean, I get you can physically, but nobody will. It's too expensive. And I don't know if they have the craftsmen to do it. Maybe you can't do that now. And I think people, sometimes I do this too, but you think that we're smarter now because there's more technology and things that develop and built on the past. But I'll tell you, there were the people that existed in the 13th century, 12th century, 11th century were just as smart as us. They didn't have the knowledge base because it didn't exist, but they were gaining knowledge. And to say that we're smarter than them, we're more intelligent as opposed to more knowledgeable, and some of us aren't even that, is a huge mistake. And it's just so tragic. And I just see we're just wasting everything. It's just going to go up in a puff of clouds. Yeah. Because, if you just unplug everything, 98% of Americans don't even know what the hell is going on. Yeah. They couldn't fix anything. And my new rule now, if I'm gonna, if anybody's gonna ask me for support in an election, that's a local official, I'm gonna ask them, where does your water come from? Do you know where your water comes from? And what I mean by that is, where is the well or the water treatment facility for where you live? And if they don't know the answer to that question, then they aren't doing their homework. And I think we all should do that. And it's a stupid question, but it's so simple. And everybody thinks this stuff just comes out of the air. Yeah. But I know where the water treatment plant is in town. There used to be a water sewage treatment there off of by West City Park. But now that they've drained that, now it's a more professional outfit and do a much better job for the environment. But I bet you 90% of the elected officials in this state have no idea where their own water comes from, and let alone the voters. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm going to start to say to people who have an opinion about anything. I think the president should do this. Oh, yeah, where does your water come from? And they won't know. You should try that sometime.
Yeah, I should.
Because you go to college, but first you have to find out. Because that's you don't know when you're in Kirksville, where's your water come from?
Yeah. I know generally we have the water table that sits underneath a big coal vein. I don't know where our water treatment facility is. Yeah.
Where's the water treatment facility?
I do not know.
Where's your water come from? Because when the shit hits the fan, that's the thing you have to secure. Yeah. Because that's how you kill populations. Really, when it comes down to it, you get their drinking water. Yes. I don't know how I got on that subject.
Yeah, I have no idea. But again, going back,
because we don't know anything practical. Yes. We don't know. We don't value the past. And that like there's still aqueducts, still the structures from the Roman era where they had a water distribution system that's still in existence. We can't even keep a road paved for more than 5 years, and it turns to dust and powder.
I was going to go back and say, when you were talking about, the beauty of old things, I think that's something, that one of the big things about mythology that I like, even in here, which are, likely summaries of summaries, right. There's still so much beauty in these stories, either from Jake Jackson's own writings or from, the original stories themselves.
Right. And, very creative. I would have never anticipated the bird story. Yeah. I mean, somebody thought of this where this daughter turns into a bird,
Well, it's likely, generations of people writing these stories is what it is. And, I think that's something that we also have lost in terms of like modern writing things. We look at every writing as, this is this individual's work and it's theirs alone and they should be praised for it. And it's like, well, what brought them to this point? What other factors, influenced this writing? What is this drawing on? And I think we need some more, I guess, collaborative writing, I guess,
a little bit more humility too.
Yes.
And that's what really stopped me, hindered me from going further into philosophy, my study of philosophy, because I realized, I don't know that I have any original ideas. Really, when it comes down to it, there's so many philosophers who have considered this issue, that issue, this issue over the centuries. It's like, do I really have anything?
Well, did any of them had anything new to offer?
I know, but it's like, but the rarity of a philosopher having a new concept, a revolutionary idea, or something that really improves the understanding of the world. How often has that happened in human history?
That's a good question.
Maybe once every 50 years,
maybe
at most.
Well, I would argue that maybe none of them have really revolutionized anything. Because it's like I was saying, it's, really not one person's thoughts. It's all of the people that have come before them, and then somebody to say, well, here's this.
Why do we know Kant, but we don't know anybody else that was in his town? How do we know Hegel and Locke and Hobbes, Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates? How do we even know their names? Because they were exemplary.
I guess that's true,
and they had, it may not have been a completely original idea, but they had a way to articulate it, to write it, to publish it, And like Thomas Aquinas, how much did he write over his career? I mean, I think that's a lost art. I don't think anybody's writing as much as they used to. The real good deep thinkers. I don't write any. You know, I write for work, but it's not any. Although sometimes I do sneak in little subtle jokes in there, but it's not creative writing. And who does creative writing anymore? Well, there's a bunch of books in the bookstore, but I don't know. It's just I'm down on it now, and I think these myths. I think like you said, they're timeless, and I think they're like you said, they're built over generations.
Well, it's all very human, is what it is.
Yeah,
I think that's really the underlying thing. There is
human nature. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, of course it is, the legends of the Scottish people or the Chinese people, but at the same time, it's also the legends of the human people. You know, it's very universal in a way.
Right.
I think that's really what draws me to myths is that, no matter where you are, there's always some story that will appeal to you.
Yes. True. Yeah. I liked it. Enjoyed it.
So I think it was a good season.
So what are we going to do for next season?
Yes, next season, going off of pretty much exactly what we have just said for like the last 10 minutes, is The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, which I'm really looking forward to. I've wanted to read this for a while.
Really?
Yes.
Why are you looking forward to it? I'm looking forward to that more than I'm looking forward to this one. This one was
definitely more structured than I think season 1. I think we're going to go back to a more season 1 type format where we're looking at big picture, what is the ideas that this person is saying. This one we had more summaries, and I think this was good to do. Just get an idea of generally stories from around the world. But yeah, The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell was originally a PBS interview with the interviewer Bill Moyers, just talking essentially with Joseph Campbell about all of his ideas, why mythology is important, what it does for humans as a whole, and why we need to kind of keep that up today, and basically exactly what we were just saying. So
you get the book on Amazon for like $10,
and it's
super cheap.
A very, as far as I know, I haven't read it yet, but it's a very well written or well spoken, I guess, interview. A lot of people have really enjoyed it over the years. I mean, Joseph Campbell was a very, very smart man. I've read The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is his sort of explanation of the hero's journey, the steps that every mythological hero tends to follow.
I have an idea for the next season.
Already for season 4?
Yeah, because we were talking about these things. I think we'll have to find something by Thomas Sowell. I think he is one of the most brilliant. He is certainly top 2 modern political thinkers in the world.
Really?
And that it's living, I think, in the last 50 years.
Wow.
Him and Victor Davis Hanson. Those are but Thomas Sowell is has many more books on social science, political philosophy. Brilliant guy. I think that's I'm going to have to find the right one, but he's got like dozens of them.
That's a good
I've
idea
only read a couple of
for
them.
season 4. But yeah. We'll get more into Joseph Campbell and who he is. We'll be taking a break next week, I believe, and then going in the week after. So our between seasons break, and then we'll start off with the introduction to that book, and then we'll jump right in. We'll see how we'll want to format the episodes.
Depending on the length.
Decently long chapters, maybe 2 episodes per chapter is what I'm roughly thinking right now.
2 episodes per chapter.
Yes. There's like 7 chapters, I think.
Oh. Well, I was thinking a shorter season anyway. Because you'll be going off to college. I was thinking maybe the shorter one, and off you go, and then we'll do another season.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. And I hope, of course. I'm hoping that the listener or listeners, depending on how many we carry over into next season, will enjoy it, because I think I'll really like this season.
Yeah, I think it'll move a lot quicker. It'll be a lot more lively discussion as opposed to kind of like summarizing somebody else's work.
Yeah,
do you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Good.
Do you have any other final thoughts for season 2, the finale of season 2 of Unlimited Opinions?
No.
No. Okay.
No. But we have to. Are we going to come up with a T-shirt for season 3?
I guess we should. We've done one for both seasons so far.
And I wore both of them the last 2 days.
You did.
Yes.
You did.
But we'll have to think of
another,
because we always have the season. And then we have a quote on the back.
Yes.
The first year was mine. Your opinion is wrong. The last one is something about was from you.
Yes, that is incredibly fascinating.
Incredibly fascinating. That's good. I don't know. Maybe we'll go in a different direction.
Maybe. But we'll think about that, and I'm sure we'll do some sort of Twitter thing maybe to give away one of those. Of course, our Twitter is ULMTD Opinions, ULMTD Opinions on Twitter. Make sure to follow us. I always tweet out when the new episode is live. So.
Yes.
So I guess that's all I have to say about season 2. Thank you for joining us on this season, whoever is still listening for the past 36 episodes, or maybe the past, I guess it's been well over 80 something at this point since we first started. So if you've been listening since then, that's impressive, and I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been Adam Bishop,
I'm still Mark Bishop.
and this has been Unlimited Opinions. Yes, that was a good finale.